Hey, Trailblazers, we have some exciting news here at the Trailblazing Texas podcast. We have partnered up with Hilltop Packs, not just because they make amazing ultralight gear, but because they're a small family run business doing huge things for our hiking and backpacking community. Every food bag, dry sack, fanny pack that you order can be completely customized. Print your trail name, your dog's face, your favorite mountain, or really whatever inspires you. When you shop at Hilltop Packs, you're not only buying gear that you're absolutely going to love, but you're supporting real families, real jobs, and small town craftsmanship. So head over to hilltoppacks.com and use code TTP10 to get 10% off of your order. Now on with the episode. Welcome to the Trailblazing Texas podcast, where we embark on a journey through our diverse Texas landscapes and breathtaking trails while always engaging with our amazing Texas hiking community. So settle in, tighten up those bootlaces, and get ready for the thrilling tales awaiting for you on this episode. Welcome to the Trailblazing Texas podcast. I'm your host, Jason, and we have some groundbreaking news today. Finally, the stars have aligned. It's been, golly, 7 or 8 months. Me, working to get Texas state parks on the podcast, and I am proud to say, excited, we have our very first Texas state park coming on the podcast. Coming to us all the way from the magnificent park, Davis Mountains. Charlie, welcome to the podcast.
Hello, good morning, Jason. So honored to be here and so happy to be your first state park on the podcast.
Absolutely. And I know we kind of talked about it a little bit before we got started. It means a lot to me to have you guys on as the first guest, first state park. I started this hiking and backpacking journey probably about 8 or 9 years ago, and I was driving on I-10 trying to dodge a blizzard heading into New Mexico to go snow skiing, and I saw a sign that said Guadalupe Mountains, and I literally laughed and said, "There's no mountains in Texas." Boy, was I wrong.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, so I that was in December. That March, my wife and I went to, of course, you got to go bag the highest peak in Texas. And I met probably one of my best friends in life, John, at the park. He lives in Washington, and whether we're in Rainier, whether we're in the Guads, because he'll come down and hike some stuff with me, he always talks about, he grew up in Midland, Odessa area, and he always talked about his grandfather taking him to Davis Mountains and how the park impacted him, in all the ways and the memories. And so, John, I know you're listening. This episode is definitely dedicated to you. And again, Charlie, thank you so much for taking the time and coming on the podcast.
Sure thing. Well, I have to say, to quote many of our guests, you're starting with the best state park in Texas. Just going to throw that out there.
I definitely agree that you guys have to be one of the best state parks in Texas. And the reason why I said that, I've never been to the Davis Mountain State Park, but I've been to Davis Mountain Preserves. And I'm guessing you guys are kind of connected in a certain way. And I have never, and I've been hiked and backpacked all over Texas, and I have never, and you can ask my friends if they ask me what's the most beautiful area of Texas. And I love the Guads. I've been there 20 something times, but it's that area where you guys are located is just absolutely spectacular.
Yeah, it sure is. I agree. I love it here.
So can you just, before we kind of get into the podcast, can you just kind of give us the role that you have within the park?
Sure. So I am the interpretive ranger, and the volunteer coordinator. So, as the interpretive ranger, I am responsible for scheduling all the programming here at the park, the walks, the talks, um, all those kinds of things. And so I schedule those and promote those, and either do them myself or rope in volunteers to help me. I also do our social media. About 99% of it I do on our Facebook page or Instagram. And
Okay.
on the Facebook side, there's a page for the Davis Mountain State Park, the Black Bear Restaurant, and the Indian Lodge. So, trying to do content for all those three. I also do outreach, like different. I'll show up at events around the area, festivals, farmers markets. You know, presenting a table with information about the park, and then education. So I visit our local schools and libraries, and either do lessons like science lessons or read to kids. Library story time, and then also work with local volunteers. I have a local volunteer base that comes about once a month and helps with different projects. I also work with our park hosts here that stay at the park for free in exchange for their labor. So it's kind of a combination of education, promotion. What else? Yeah, kind of. I'm supposed to know everything about the park always, which I don't. But
So you're the man of the many hats.
yeah, it is a lot of hats, which I like. That's what I like about it. I'm not tethered to my desk. It's very mobile, and it's very expansive. I can really take it where I want, depending on who I want to collaborate with or what's happening during the year. So it's never the same thing every day.
Yeah, nice. All right, before we jump into the episode, I have a little thing, and I'm going to kind of usually I do it at the end, but I really enjoy doing this at the very beginning. It's called the lightning round, or at my age, I call it the warm up because, um, it's just fun questions. It for me, it settles my nerves, so I really enjoy it. And to the listeners, and kind of to take maybe a behind the scenes when we set up these episodes, we reach out, we get approvals if there's an interest, and then I draft questions, and then I send the questions over to the guest, get their feedback. Do they like the questions? Do they, or the direction of the episode? That sort of thing. Charlie, you can confirm you have not seen the lightning round questions, correct?
Correct. I have not seen the questions.
All right. So the episode questions, we're in alignment now. This is going to be a shocker. All right, let's get jumping into this. All right. And again, these are just fast. What's the first word that kind of comes to your head? And even though it may not be fast, but through the magic of edit, it's going to like we're blazing through these questions. So, favorite trail in the park.
Favorite trail is Skyline Drive Trail.
All right. Funniest thing you've overheard a visitor say.
One time, a camper came to me complaining that she thought her neighbor was coming into her campsite at night and rummaging through her cooler and making a big old mess. And after going and investigating and seeing a few paw prints, we concluded that it was really javelina who were getting into her cooler and making a mess. So she was kind of relieved it wasn't her neighbors.
All right. Sunrise hike or sunset sit?
So sunrise hike, the upper part of Skyline Drive Trail. If you want to fast forward that, you can just drive up Skyline Drive and park at the scenic overlook, and then you're already up on top, and you're heading east, and you're going to see that sunrise. Favorite place for a sunset would be also along Skyline Drive Trail. It's a place called the Kesey Canyon Overlook, and it's just a little kind of special hilltop with a bench with a 360 view. looking down on the Indian Lodge, looking to the west, and it's just stunning.
What's tougher to manage, the heat or the crowds?
Um, the heat is not unbearable. If you got your hat on and your sunglasses and your sunscreen, because it's typically low humidity, it's not as bad as say on the coast. People are always unpredictable, so I'm gonna go with crowds.
All right.
Yeah.
So, if today was your last day at the park, what message would you leave behind for future park staff?
Don't forget how beautiful this place is. Don't forget how special it is to have a job where you're asked to preserve and conserve the resources of Texas. It's an honor to work here, and it's beautiful. And don't let the day to day tasks overwhelm you.
I love it. So, what is your go to hiking snack on shift?
Well, I do love trail mix, and it's got to have M&Ms in there. I just did a hike a few days ago, and I had two breakfast burritos. So those are always a staple.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Cliff Bars are still great as well,
Yeah.
and lots of
Cool.
water.
Absolutely. Coolest animal you've spotted at the park?
One day, two gray fox wandered back behind the interpretive center to in the bird blind to our water feature, and it was about 5 o'clock. I was literally turning the lights off and leaving the building for the day, and I just happened to catch a little movement out the window, and it was two beautiful gray fox heading up to get a drink, and I was able to get my phone out and record it, I felt so
Wow.
lucky to see them during the daytime. It was beautiful.
Wow. So, what is one trail that you can hike at the park blindfold because you know it so well?
Sure. Well, I've been here almost 7 years, so I know them all very well. But I guess it's Skyline Drive Trail. It's the one I've done the most. It it,
Yeah.
it doesn't really have too many surprises anymore.
So, in your opinion, what is the most important thing first timers to the park must know before arriving?
Well, they need to know about drinking water out here in the high desert, and many of them don't, sadly. But you really have to keep your water intake going. Um, if you're on the trail, I think it's advised about 1 liter per hour, perhaps.
Yeah.
And that and just keeping your hat on, the sun protection. It's all super important and something that a lot of people fail to take seriously.
So, what's, in your opinion, what's more dangerous? Raccoons in the campsite or toddlers with marshmallow sticks?
Oh, raccoons are not that dangerous unless you leave your food out. Yeah, I wouldn't want a toddler with a marshmallow stick anywhere near me.
So, if you look back at your 7 years, what's one moment that reminded you why you love working at the park?
I just had a moment last weekend. I got to work with two kiddos, brother and sister, on their junior ranger workbook, and that's an activity we encourage young people to do, and if they do a certain number of activities, they can earn a badge. And um, I really like to take the time with the kids and have them tell me what they've learned, and we review their work. And especially if it's kids who are new to state parks who haven't had a lot of outdoor experiences, um, you
Right.
know, you really feel like you're turning them on to something cool, and I always have them, name me a friend that they can go back home and tell all the things they've learned, and maybe encourage them to come to the park. So that's always rejuvenating when you have those meaningful experiences with the young folks.
Absolutely. And if you really think about it, not to get away from the lightning round, but you really impact in a positive way. So the feeling that you have, it must be amazing.
Yeah, yeah, and it's a great recharge when you kind of forget. Sometimes you forget, the mission, and that's a good way to remember it.
All right. You have to lead a hike or an overnight, and the hike that you're leading is full of hikers with squeaky boots, or the overnight is going to be at a campsite with a bunch of snorers. Which one are you picking?
Ooh, definitely the squeaky boots.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and I would be one of the snorers probably.
Oh, yeah. Me too.
I'm not going to take my CPAP machine on the on the overnight. Yeah,
Gotcha.
that'd be rough.
So I like this question. Is what would you tell a brand new park ranger starting their very first day there today?
Oh, um, probably that. Well, if they're going to take my job, I would tell them that get ready for many months of feeling like an imposter because you're going to be expected to know everything about everything. You know, what rock is that? How did it get there? What's that animal? Um, what's that grass over there? And it can be overwhelming because you want to be knowledgeable. So I would say pace yourself, bite off what you can chew, give yourself time to absorb, and just remember that you are doing a lot more than you probably think you are, and you're doing more than you give yourself credit for. So be good, be easy on yourself.
Nice. All right, this is a yes or no question. Have you ever had a visitor ask a question that made you pause and go, "Did they really just ask that?"
Yes, often.
All right. We're starting to kind of wrap this up. So, last couple of questions. Would you rather talk to someone out of trying to pet wild animals or explain for the 20th time why feeding wild animals is a bad idea?
I think you're going to make more of an impact if you convince them why feeding them is not a good idea. Then hopefully they will pass that on to the people in their sphere.
All right, last question. This is the most important question of the podcast today, and it will definitely dictate how long the podcast lasts. What is your favorite Texas hiking podcast?
Wow, you put me on the spot here. It's
Yeah.
um it's Trailblazing Texas.
Yes, and
What other ones are there?
well, I don't know. And to the listeners, you heard it here first. What's funny is that question always gets asked in the lightning round, and it's always the same answer. So it's awesome.
Your percentages are looking good.
Absolutely. And with that answer, this episode is going to last as long as you want it to.
Yay, we'll continue.
All right. So let's actually jump into the episode and get our listeners some knowledge on the Davis Mountains. So, just real quickly, I really want the listeners to get to know you. And I know that you said you worked at the Davis Mountains for around 7 years. How long have you worked for the Texas Parks and Wildlife?
Well, this is my first and only state park.
Oh, okay. So, 7 years?
Yeah, so I was a school teacher for about 20 years in Austin and then a little bit west in Marble Falls. And I was a Boy Scout, Eagle Scout. But for some reason, I never ever considered working for a state park until about 2016. I was really wanting to do something different. I worked with special needs students, and that's pretty challenging work. Um, so I'd started coming out here to the Davis Mountains about 2000 with my partner, and he was tired of hearing me bellyache about wanting to do something different. So we were here camping in 2016 at Davis Mountain State Park, and we decided to look in a real estate magazine and see what was for sale. And our budget was very limited, so it had to be a big fixer upper. So we found an Adobe home and we bought it. and started working on it. And after about a year and a half of coming out here on vacation to work on it, I decided to uproot, and we moved here in the summer of 2018. And it was at that point that I decided that I wanted to work for Davis Mountain State Park. I had become aware of the interpretive uh, position, and I could see a lot of similarities between that and teaching.
Hmm.
And at the time, there was someone else was in this role, so I took a position at the Indian Lodge in the fall of 2018, working at the front desk, checking guests in and that kind of thing, working overnights on the weekends, making a lot less money, if you can believe it, as a teacher. So I did that for a year, and then I was able to move up to the front office of the park, and check campers and hikers in, and the hours were nice. Were 8 to 5, no overnights. And so around 2022, the interpretive ranger position came open, and I applied, and thankfully was picked to do this. So yeah, so this is my only state park so far to work at.
Oh, awesome. So, what do you think one thing about your job that people might find surprising?
Um, let's see. I think people are surprised by the different hats I wear. Being here at the park, working at the interpretive center, answering questions here, leading hikes, showing up at events, doing social media, showing up at the library. I get a lot of this from people that, you must have the funnest job ever. And, it is very fun. But kind of that expansiveness I mentioned earlier can also make it feel like, man, I'm not getting it all done. I'm not covering everything, because
Yeah.
there aren't a lot of boundaries. It can go wherever you want it to go. So there's a little bit of a pressure with that, I guess, that I put on myself. I'm trying to think of what else. Some people think that housing comes with these jobs, or that we can kind of move around within the system, but that's not really how it works with the state park system. You're responsible for your housing, unless you're one of maybe one or two people, a superintendent, who is provided housing here on site. But you pick your job, you typically go, you get your house, and you kind of settle in, and you're not moving around like you might within the national park system.
That's interesting. Yeah, and do you find it do you enjoy the freedom of kind of like you're managing your own destiny, or would you like it to be a little more like, with some boundaries and direction?
you know um, I overall, I really like it. And it kind of depends on who my supervisor is. So I report to our assistant superintendent, and my current one is great. She used to be an interpreter, so she has a feel for what I should or need to do, and so we check in every week. And yeah, she kind of helps me remember, what is reasonable for me to be doing, and helps me not bite off too much. But no, I like working independently. I like not not being on a strict schedule. you know um, yeah, I enjoy the freedom quite a bit.
I think I would too. And at the end of the day, you are the reason for your successes and failures, and I don't know that you can ask for anything better than that, right?
I agree. Yes.
So, yeah, so jumping into the Davis Mountains, when and how did the state park officially get established?
So this park was established in the mid 1930s. It started uh, with the CCC, so the Civilian Conservation Corps. That was a back to work program started during FDR's presidency in early 1933. And so you had these different projects sprouting up that year all over the country. A lot of parks were established then, and conservation projects. So, so you had some different dynamics going on. So, this area used to have a fort, Fort Davis, that was closed in 1891, and that kind of took the bottom out of the local economy. But then you had the Transcontinental Railroad coming through, and that ushered in the era of cattle ranching. And so that kind of became the dominant economy. And then by the early 1900s, you've got the automobile becoming this thing that normal people can have, and they're now starting to travel via car, and that was kind of a new thing back then. And so the local landowners in business class wanted to capitalize on that. They knew this was super pretty, and so they were talking to the governor then and the state legislators about getting a some kind of a state park going here. And so the original idea was to have a state park highway, so a scenic highway that you would drive along through the Davis Mountains, and along the way you'd have these like picnic areas where you would camp. And it was modeled after the scenic highway along the Columbia River. So they start asking local landowners for land for the easements for this road, and so the idea gains traction, and at some point the idea shifts to having the park be more centralized and localized, and not like a roadway, but more of an enclosed park. And so the landowners of the land that we're on right now along Kesey Canyon, which flows through the park, they donate the land, and that's how the park gets established here where it is. So then you've got the CCC coming, and they're building the historic section of the Indian Lodge out of adobe brick. They're also building Skyline Drive with hand tools, and get that going. And then I think it was a couple of decades later that they actually got the campground going. The information's a little hazy on that. So yeah, but we can go back. We go back to the mid 1930s.
Wow. So, what would you say? What does the CCC legacy mean to the park's identity?
Oh, it's profound. You can't escape it. The Indian Lodge is such a beautiful place. Um, it's the only hotel in the entire state park system. Other some other parks have cabins or lodges or rooms you can rent, but we're a full-fledged hotel, with a housekeeping staff and the whole bit. Our restaurant, the Black Bear, is the only restaurant, run by Texas Parks and Wildlife. You go around the park and you see evidence of the CCC. Up on Skyline Drive, you've got the CCC Rock Lookout Shelter, which is beautiful to sit in and gaze out on the landscape. In our interpretive center, there's a lot of stories and pictures to look at and read about their legacy. Yeah, you can't come here and not feel their legacy and the hard work, and just what a special thing it was that we had that.
Absolutely. I read a little bit about the Indian Lodge, and how does that fit into the park's history?
Well, that really kind of started everything,
Yeah.
that was what was built first. I guess along with Skyline Drive, they were, they the folks that got this all going, the local uh, townspeople, they wanted a resort in West Texas. Even back then, Texans were driving to Colorado in the summertime, to escape
Yeah.
the heat. Like I mentioned, the automobile being a big thing back then. The first car came to Fort Davis in 1906, and it was a steam engined vehicle from Houston. It took them 2 weeks to get here,
Wow.
and yeah, so rich folks from Houston and Galveston were coming out here, they were building their summer homes out here in Fort Davis, and they were spending the summer here because people knew, or at least some people knew, how cool it was here in the summer. We're at about 5,000 feet, and humidity is super low, and so those people were called summer swallows because they were flying away from the Gulf Coast. Um, so yeah, so the lodge was built first, and it was only 16 rooms, not huge, but yeah, that was kind of the first phase of this park. And so now it's like we have three parks in one. We've got, Davis Mountain State Park, which people associate with the hiking trails and the camping. And then you've got the Indian Lodge, which is within Davis Mountain State Park. It's at the end of the canyon, and it's a hotel, but um, but it's got its own web page, and you book a room kind of like you would book a campsite. And then you've got the Black Bear Restaurant. So all three are kind of separate entities, under one umbrella. So we all work together ultimately.
So, if you kind of think about the park's history, what is a little known historical fact that you think most people don't know?
Well, this is kind of a fun thing. I like to mention this when I do the Indian Lodge tour, which I do twice a month on a Friday, up at the lodge. So when people come to town, especially if they come from bigger cities, they're for the first time they're rather stunned with how small Fort Davis is. I mean, there are literally no street lights here, and the sidewalk really does roll up at 8 o'clock at night. So so when they go to our local grocery, which is now called Lowe's, and that's not like Lowe's Home Improvement, that's Lowe's
Yeah.
Grocery. So there's a connection between Lowe's and the CCC. And so one of the early guys who worked here, his name was Lolo Baeza. He worked here as a CCC worker, and then he went off to serve in World War II, like many of them did. And that money that he earned as a CCC worker, which was about 30, well, it was literally $30 a month, and of that they only
Wow.
kept five. So it was $1 a day, and they kept five as pocket money, and the rest of that went straight home to their mom and dad. So when Lolo came back from World War II, his mother, presents him with all this money that she'd saved for him, and basically said, "Okay, son, go off and make something of yourself." So he and his I think his some of his brothers or cousins, they start a local grocery store called Baez's, and pretty soon they've got locations all around this area. And then at some point, I think maybe in the 90s, they sell their chain to Porter's. And so for a long time, Porter's was the grocery store, and that's what I would shop at when I first started coming. And so now it's been sold to Lowe's. So we can thank the CCC and Lolo for starting that grocery, which we all enjoy, and that all started here at the Indian Lodge.
Wow, that's pretty spectacular.
Yeah,
Thanks for sharing that.
yeah, you're welcome.
So, kind of getting into the trails and terrain, and really starting to let the listeners know what they can expect at the Davis Mountains. What are some of your most popular hiking trails in the park?
Sure, you can make a really nice 5 mile loop out of linking up the Skyline Drive Trail with the CCC Trail, and that takes people typically between 2 to 3 hours. But you're going to get some nice incline, or I guess or decline, depending on which way you go. But that's going to take you up and along the Skyline Drive Ridge, and you're going to have some great views. So if people are looking for a 2 to 3 hour hike, and they're in decent shape, that's what I always recommend. Let's see. We've also just reopened the Indian Lodge Trail, since we reopened the Indian Lodge, and you can link that up with the Montezuma Quail Trail, and that's about a 2 hour hike. but that's going to get you up on another ridge, kind of behind the lodge. Your views are going to be more kind of looking north and northwest into the Davis Mountains. That's equally pretty. If you want something even longer, you can go across the street on the primitive side, and over there we have about a total of 11 miles. If you do an out and back, um,
Mm-hmm.
and you can hike up to the top of the Olympia Vista, and you can do some camping up there. We have some primitive sites, so so that's really fun. You know, I wouldn't do that in the summertime; it's just too hot. But you know, fall and winter, if you know if you're like training for something or just want something a little bit more remote, that's really nice.
Nice.
Something to think about real quick. All of our trails are super rocky, and and some of them are full of scree, you know, really loose little rock, and
Mm-hmm.
so you really got to be careful. We do one of our needs is some trail maintenance, which we might get into more later. But yeah, you got to be careful. You need to have some good shoes. Trekking poles are definitely helpful.
Okay. And would you say that the trails the Davis Mountains offers maybe would be more on the challenging side, or maybe, that there's some that are beginner friendly?
Well, the we do have the headquarters trail, which is relatively flat. That's not long at all. That's maybe half a mile. So that's definitely beginner friendly. The CCC trail is also not too challenging, but I've noticed that you know every trail has a rating, and that's rather ambiguous. Kind of depends on your
Right.
comfort level anyway. So yeah, I would say most of the feedback we get is, "Wow, that was harder than I was expecting." And then you couple that with the lack of shade and the sun, and yeah, it's a
Yeah.
little challenging.
Yeah, and I always when I go to state parks, we had when my 50th birthday, I'm 52, we did the plan was 18 state parks in about 8 or 9 days, and I think we ended up getting 15. And so I would hit a state park. I'd like, all right, what's your best, most popular trail? What are you known for? And then I would go do it. And it was pretty early in going to the state parks that I always got warnings that, that they could be challenging and stuff. And I just started thinking like that's a lot of responsibility put on you guys for someone to ask you is this easy? Is it hard? Is it, y- you know, beginner friendly? Like I asked, like you literally have to probably caution on the side of, not exaggerating, but, really making sure that the people know what they're getting into.
I mean, yeah, there is that tension for sure because you know, as a hiker, I don't want to scare people away from a fun experience. So I kind of just, you know, if I'm being asked, I you can kind of size people up as to their experience and their comfort level. So, you know, we you know, and I'm a teacher, so I'm kind of a nerd. I'll get the map and we'll look at it, and I'll try to tell them, you know, the things that they need to know. You know, ask if they have water, and and say, you know, if you feel like turning around and going back, that there's nothing wrong with that too.
No.
So yeah, you know, I mean, and you know, we're all adults, and you know, this is the great outdoors. So there is some onus on the guest to be responsible for themselves. So yeah, you just do your best. We're not too remote. You know, if people get in a jam, they can normally get a cell signal, or you know, you're not going to be lost out there.
Yeah.
We have had a few situations where we had to go up and help people down. You know, people who got dehydrated, um, or because they got dehydrated, they got a little bit um, just you know forgot where the trail was, couldn't figure out where to go. So yeah, there have been situations where people were in a bind, and we, you know, and that's the thing. If we don't stress the risks, then that could come back to result in a situation where we're going up a mountain, trying to get people down on a stretcher or something else.
How often does that happen in the park?
Thankfully, not too often. Maybe 1 or 2 times in the summer. So, yeah, not a common occurrence.
It was shocking that there was a ranger. I think she was a volunteer at Guadalupe Mountains. Her name's Pam Bells. Uh, she's she's in her 70s, and she is the volunteer rescue person that the movie Infinite Storm was based on. It was based on one of her rescues.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, so you have to check out. She's amazing. I think she's I don't know how long she was at Guads, but she was able to summit Guadalupe Peak over 300 times, and they had a celebration on her 300th one. But she's out there helping people, wrapping ankles, giving water, and no one had an idea who she was. I mean, the park, of course, knows, but like us hikers, we just see this lady and she's helping us.
Wow.
And so I always call her Ranger Pam. And so every time that I am at the park, I look for her and we talk about. I had no idea of all the, you don't hear about it in the news and stuff, of all the things that happen in the park where there's rescues and fatalities, people having heart attacks and stuff. Well, she was involved in all those. And so I would always talk to her about kind of what's happened in the park since the last time. And also, she sees mountain lions. So that's probably the only thing in the Guads that I have on my bucket list is to see a mountain lion. So I always ask her, okay, where is the mountain lion sighting? Where did you see the last one? And so she was telling me about a rescue that she had, and I looked at her and I was like, Pam, I go, that sounds like that movie. And she just like smiles, grabs her name badge, and just slowly moves it where I could see it. And I'm like, you're Pam Bells?
Oh, wow.
No way. And, I don't care about sports athletes or movie stars, or I could care less about any of that stuff. But man, I was in hog heaven. I had to take a Ussie with her. I go, I've been talking to you for all these years and had no idea.
Wow, what a humble person.
You would never in a million years, like the most humblest person you have ever met, and the experience, the lives that she saved. And what was funny is I posted on the a couple of Facebook groups like Guadalupe Mountains, and I live right next to the longest trail in Texas, the Lone Star Hiking Trail.
Mhm.
And just like, guys, I don't know, to the hiking community, I don't know if you know, but our national park has this person volunteering, and you should see the hundreds and hundreds of comments like that. Oh my God, that lady, saved me. I twisted my ankle, or, she had water cached along the Guadalupe. So she, gave me water. She wrapped my ankle. She carried my backpack down because I just couldn't make it. And so it was just really interesting, but it was just shocking to hear, almost maybe not on a daily basis, a weekly basis, of all the things that happen at the national park where there's a rescue involved, and it just kind of floored me. So,
She's a trail angel.
oh man, she is. Oh, and just again, the most humble person you've ever met. And she just left the park, and I think she's heading back home to. I think she's in New Hampshire, is where that movie was. The rescue happened, and I think that's where she's heading back. But yeah, the park has lost a hero for sure.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah. So best views, best photo ops. What trails would you say offer those opportunities?
Well, the highest point at the park is on the primitive side, um, up at, Olympia, I always forget the full name, Olympia Creek Summit or Olympia Vista. It's on the map. So it's at about 5,700 feet. So that's great. And if you hike up there, we have a green metal box, and inside is a trail log and a pen, and you can sign your name that you made it up there. Um, the Indian Lodge is super photogenic. I've been posting a lot of pictures and videos on our pages about that. The view from the balcony, looking down across the pool, kind of down the canyon is really pretty. But I'll go back to the Keezy Canyon Overloop up there on Skyline Drive Trail. That's really a great spot. That's where I lead a group once a month. We do a full moon rise hike, and we kind of time it so that we're up there to see the moonrise. So, yeah, those are some of my favorite spots.
All right. And also to throw this out there, I have a goal. Every guest that comes on the podcast, I'm going to have to hike with them. So so in the future, I'm going to be hitting you up. We're going to have to share a trail together.
Love it. You had mentioned Mount Livermore.
Hmm.
I got to hike that 2 days ago on Wednesday.
Was that your first time?
No, no, that was not my first time. I think that might have been my third, but I had planned to have the day off, and what I had planned to do kind of fizzled out, but I had this day, and so I have a buddy who is a volunteer up there at the Davis Mountain Preserve, and so he has access kind of whenever. So we went up there and did it in really good time. But yeah, it was a beautiful time. So maybe we can hike out there sometime.
Oh, absolutely. And what's funny is episode 11 and 12, it was Mr. Barry. We talked about it, Lost Hiker at Guads. In the beginning of the episode, so it's got to be episode 11, he talks about meeting a guy at camp, and then his family owned that land.
Oh, wow.
So before it became, the preserve, he was out there, climbing Mount Livermore. And I'm like, what? He goes, yeah, they own that land. So it was
Wow.
a really interesting story. And, and because we were talking about that, and that's absolutely probably some of the prettiest area. I think I've already said it, in Texas. And so that's funny.
It really is. I mean, when you're there, you feel like you're in New Mexico or southern Colorado at times.
There is not a time where I post pictures in the Guads, Davis Mountain Preserves, Caprock, where someone goes, "Yeah, are you in Colorado? Are you in Arizona? Where are you at?" And I'm like, "No, it's Texas." It's about a 8-hour drive or a 6-hour drive. So yeah, and I think that's one of the most important things that I would like to get across to the listeners is get outside, and how wonderful and diverse Texas is
Yeah.
as a
Yeah,
hiking destination.
indeed.
So I'm planning a trip to Davis Mountains. What animals are most commonly seen by hikers, or what encounters should I expect?
Well, if you are into birds, then you definitely are hoping to see the Montezuma quail. They're a really striking bird, kind of plump, um, land ground dwellers. They nest on the ground. If you look at their range map, in Texas. You're only going to see them out here or around like Del Rio area, and then Arizona and Mexico. So for the longest time, people were hearing them out in the grass. They have a very distinctive sound, kind of like a firecracker descending. But then about a year and a half ago, they probably because of the drought, they were coming down to our bird blind to eat the seed that we drop on the ground and also to get a drink. And so, it's been a great year and a half. Pretty much every day, um, you're going to see them. So that's really exciting. We have a lot of other beautiful birds here that you might not see anywhere else. Um, you're also going to be seeing a lot of mule deer
Hmm.
here in the park. They have the thin rope-like tail with the black tip and a lot of exposed white on their rump, and then of course the big ears like mule ears. You're going to see javelina, typically around dawn or at dusk, and you're going to probably see and or hear the aoudad. And the aoudad are the Barbary sheep that were imported to Texas in the early 1900s. I think I've read different years, but we'll just say early to mid 1900s. And they have done very well here. They've done too well here. They're considered an invasive species, making it difficult for the desert bighorn and the mule deer to compete. But you're going to see them typically going to jumping up all around the rocky outcroppings and up on the mountaintops and or down in the canyons. You'll see lots of skunk, raccoon, and you might even see some rattlesnakes.
Oh, wow. We were hiking the Guadalupe Ridge Trail in February, and we had a special route. My friend Todd kind of made this route. It was 114 miles, and we were just now almost getting into Texas from New Mexico. We were in the Lincolns, and we rounded a corner, and there was a family of hunters, and they were hunting the aoudad.
Oh wow!
And yeah, he was showing me pictures. I've seen them in the quads. I've seen them, running around, but I had no idea how big they are. I mean,
Yeah,
these pictures that he had, of holding, the head and with the horns, it was almost twice as big as his torso. And I was
wow.
like, what? Yeah, it was spectacular. And the nicest people ever. First real trail angel, trail magic. We had more Gatorade and snacks than you could shake a stick at.
No, neat.
Yeah. What about any predators in the park?
Yeah. So
Coyotes and
yeah, um, they are in the area. We hear them in the evening time. Yipping. I haven't seen a coyote in the park myself.
yeah.
We do have mountain lion roaming through. I have yet to see one myself, but coworker, maintenance worker was back in the back part of the park, kind of where guests don't go, and he saw some aoudad up on the hilltop, and he was filming them with his iPhone, and he kind of pans to the left, and then he sees a mountain lion, you know, slowly pursuing
No
them.
way.
Yeah, and the mountain lion like turns and looks at him and just kind of crouches down and just keeps his gaze on my friend, which kind of freaked him out. But yeah, so we have mountain lion. This is kind of funny. Several superintendents back, our superintendent who lives on site noticed that there was a dead deer in her backyard, and based on how it was getting fed on, she could tell that it was the work of a mountain lion. And the fact that it was done in
Oh,
her
wow.
backyard was kind of it's like, what is this mountain lion making a statement here? you know, of who's in
Yep.
charge.
Absolutely. I don't know why it is, man. I especially in the quads, it's just a bucket list item. I have a friend that was in the military, and he's got some special scopes, and we always talk about just going out, sitting out on a ridge, dusk and dawn, and just sitting there and just trying to find one. But I think I could finally say my life at Guads would be complete if that would ever happen.
Yeah, I agree. It would be very special, kind of scary, but definitely special.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And all my friends and wife and kids say that it's stupid, but I don't know why. It's just, but I mean, if you look at mountain lion attacks in Texas, there's maybe two in the last 200 years,
Yeah,
or it's not a whole lot. So yeah, I think,
that's true.
yeah, I'll take the gamble. So, what would you say is your weirdest animal encounter since you've been at the park?
Well, I'll give you my most heart racing experience. I was leading a hike up on top of Skyline Drive, and there's a section where you can go down these rock steps. And so I think this was in mid to late August. we'd been having some rain, and the grass was growing, and so there was some kind of rock, crevices that were covered in grass. And so I'm in the front and I'm going down, and all of a sudden I hear, a hiss right in front of
I
me. And I jump back and scream,
Yep.
and out crawls away from me a black-tailed rattlesnake. And those are not
Ah,
known to be very big, maybe 2.5 to 3 feet. They're not the big
yeah.
guys. But man, when you hear that close by, it's just you know it
Yep.
gets into your core. So yeah, so the next day I was up there with a weed eater, clearing out all those little hiding places.
Uh,
Yeah, so that was a cool experience.
I'm probably on the Lone Star hiking trail almost every Sunday, and usually through May to September. And this was or September to May, and this was the first time that I tried to do, even through the summer. And we have there's during my hiking season on that trail, I usually bat 1,000% that I don't run into a copperhead, a coral snake, or a water moccasin on
Wow.
every hike. And and they don't make noise. The only
No.
way that you usually see them or know that they're there is because they're shooting away from you.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I definitely know what it and I lead hikes for the Lone Star Hiking Trail Club. So that's my biggest nightmare is,
Mm.
I have a group of 20 people that I'm taking on the trail, and somebody gets bit, and then, what are we going to do? So yeah, that's
Yeah.
I definitely feel you there. So I guess it's important. And how do you educate visitors to not put a human imprint on the wildlife by feeding them and leaving food out?
Um, I don't get the feeling that a lot of that happens at
Yeah,
this park. I our park hosts, they're out there making the rounds a lot more than I am, and I have, I rarely hear them, complaining about that. So
yeah,
thankfully, I think that that doesn't seem to be the biggest, kind of factor at play. You know, So I think we're doing pretty good about that. It just takes one time for a camper to, leave something out, or maybe leave it in a container that's not real secure, for them to go,
yeah,
oh, okay, I shouldn't be doing that, because all their food is gone.
yeah. You go to Pine Springs in the Guads, and there's a skunk, and he goes to everybody's campsite, and it's 2 or 3 in the morning. I'll be up getting ready to go hike, and I can just hear someone yell over here, and then someone yell over here, and I know it's Sammy the skunk. He's just making his rounds, and
Yeah,
so
totally.
yeah,
But just a little bit more on that. When people check in at our front um, office, our staff has a lot of information to give, and typically people have been driving here from far away, and so they want to get to camp. But they that is something that we stress, along with park on the pavement, not on the grass. No campfires. Um, don't string up a hammock unless the tree is sturdy enough to handle it. So there's a lot of stuff we're trying to review, and then yeah, it's our park hosts who are out there making the rounds, that are helping reinforce those kind of leave no trace principles that we want to get across.
absolutely. So, are there any seasonal wildlife that kind of comes through the park at certain times of the year?
Um, you really do see that with the birds, um, who are some of them are migrating through, and so we definitely have birds that show up in the spring, or I'm trying to think of if ones show up in the fall. I think we have at different times of the year, you've got different birds. So the hummingbirds are coming back, and We're going to have our hummingbird festival um, here in Fort Davis in a couple of weeks. That happens every 2 years, and that's not a park event per se, although we are a destination. But
Hmm.
we are a major stopping point for migratory birds, including hummingbirds. The snakes typically are kind of dormant when it's colder, so this is their season to be out and about.
Yeah.
Um, I'm trying to think what else. Yeah. Oh, we have rock squirrels. We have really big squirrels out here, rock squirrels that also kind of go dormant in the wintertime, burrowing up underground or in under rocks and holes. So they're out and about. You have a lot of birds, having babies. So there's a lot of young birds flying around. Young javelina. I've been
Mm,
seeing those around. There are turkeys around here. I've been seeing some baby turkeys. So, yeah, that's always fun to see.
nice. So, kind of moving away from the wildlife and really getting into our hiking community prepared to get to the park and talking about, safety and being prepared. What do you see are the most common injuries that you have at the park?
People not bringing enough water, for sure. Um,
And
surprisingly, yeah.
yeah, real quickly, like to the listeners, if you're going to be hiking in Texas,
Hmm.
water, 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 water. I don't care if it's like you're in the Guads at 8,000 feet. There's not a cloud in the sky. It's 32 degrees outside. That sun's still going to cook you.
Hmm.
Water, water, water.
I know, it's crazy. Yes. Yeah, and then like in the summertime, I've heard people say like if it's hot and it's summer and you're out all day, about a gallon a day.
Yeah, at least.
Hmm. Yeah. So definitely, and I like having a water reservoir in my backpack. I think that's the easy way to go. Having proper footwear, whether you want to use a hiking shoe or hiking boot, super important. Um, I would recommend hiking in long pants and long sleeves. You're going to keep the gnats and mosquitoes off. You're going to have natural, sun protection. If you're hiking through um, scratchy brush, pokey stuff, you're going to have some protection, sunscreen, a hat. The UV is super high out here, so the sun's is so intense. And food, definitely bring a good high carb snack, whatever you want, peanuts, trail mix. Yeah, those are the big things. Oh, and like bring a map, and
Man,
yeah, have your map, review your map,
yes, yes, yes.
all that.
I tell people like on the Lone Star hiking trail, like have a paper map. Understand how many road crossings are you going to have, how many creek crossings, because if you get lost, the map on your phone, you drop it in the water, your phone doesn't charge because you didn't bring a charger. Like you would know, okay, I passed two roads and I remember, passing them and they're on the map. You can really understand your location.
Right. Yeah. Being able to tell people where you are if you're in a bind is super important.
So how do you guys handle rescue or lost hikers and really in such a remote area? Is it like do you have a team that's dedicated to this?
No, and we don't have that many people. But what
Hmm.
we do, if you want to go hiking on the primitive area, you do need to sign a log in the front
Hmm.
office,
Okay.
and then we'll give you the gate combination that allows you to get into that area because it is a separate entry point about a half mile down the road from the main side of the park. So, so at least you're checking in, you're hearing about the terrain, you're getting a review, and then you're asked to come back when you're done and sign out. And then that way, if someone didn't sign out and they were missing, we would know, to go search for them. Otherwise, we would have no clue that there was anybody even over there. Um,
Yeah.
so that is helpful for sure. But yeah, otherwise, it's going to be up to whoever's on duty to be able to respond if needed. I know the last time um, we had a situation, we had a pregnant woman on a trail, and she, I think, sprained her ankle and needed help getting down. I was off that day, so I didn't get to help with that. But yeah, we had a cook from the Black Bear restaurant helping with that, and some other folks. So yeah, it's whoever's available and can do it.
Yeah.
We have them jump in.
Nice. Do visitors need to worry about any kind of weather conditions or types of year like flash flooding or anything like that? And like if you go hike in Colorado at a 14 or you better start about midnight and be down before noon because of thunderstorms and stuff. So is there anything like that related to the park or that area?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's surprising how many people come out here without having really checked the forecast, because I mean, weather changes here on
Yes.
a dime, and
Yep.
we are known for basically having 5 seasons out here. We have fall, winter, spring, summer, and then our monsoon season. So we
Right.
have our rainy season in mid to late summer. And so, yeah, if you're coming out here around now, you should be coming expecting some afternoon showers. About a month ago, I guess it was right at the 1st of July, we had a pretty substantial rain, and it resulted in a flash flood in the camp in the park. And so our low water crossings that are in the camp areas were under about 5 feet of water for a couple of
What?
hours. Yeah,
Wow.
for sure. Yeah. Thankfully, nobody was injured. No property was damaged, but yeah, we were you know we were monitoring the creek and keeping people from crossing for a couple of hours. So yeah, that definitely happens. In the wintertime, it can get down into the teens sometimes, a lot of nights in the 20s, but then you're going to warm up into maybe the 50s or 60s in the daytime.
Right.
So, you just really need to check the forecast and kind of expect the unexpected as well.
Okay. So is there any water availability on the trails like creeks, streams? Or is it if you're a hiker or backpacker, you better be like most areas bringing your own water?
Well, most of the time, there is no running water in our creek. Um,
Yeah.
because we've had rain, um, Limpia Creek, which flows through the primitive area, it does have some flowing water. So if you had a purifier, then
Right.
you could do that. Um, but otherwise, you're going to need to refill your water. We have a refill station here in the interpretive center and also at the front office. Of course, there's potable water at all the campsites too.
Hmm.
But yeah, you're going to want to bring your own water for sure.
So as we kind of wrap up, last two questions, and it's interesting how like in my experience, diverse this next question is because like you go to Pedernales, there's time entries, and you're buying a day pass, and from this time to this time or this time to this time for the Davis Mountains. What do you think is the best way to schedule the park? And what I mean is like like I'm driving down I-10 and I there's a sign and I'm like, "Oh, let's go hang out there for the day." Is that pretty successful, or do we always definitely need to plan ahead, make a reservation, those types of things?
Yeah, that's a good question. Typically, you don't have to reserve a day pass here. I don't,
Mhm.
I during COVID we had like a strict cap of 100 a day, and so
Right.
I do remember some special days, like special weekend days where we hit the cap and we had to turn people around and deny entry. But yeah, I don't think that's happened in a long time. So unless it's like Memorial Day weekend or something like that, you typically don't have to worry about reserving ahead of time. Um, you know, it doesn't hurt to do that though. Um, but definitely, if you're gonna camp here and make that big drive, I would secure my campsite before coming, because that would be a bummer to get here and not have a place to camp. I know Balmorhea, they run into this a lot. Balmorhea State Park, they're about 35 minutes away from us. They have a hard cap of, it's pretty big. It's like several hundred people a day. But once they hit that, it's kind of a one in, one out situation. And so, a lot of times people come down here and they're linking up a Balmorhea visit with the Davis Mountain State Park visit. So to definitely make reservations there. But here it's not as crucial a thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think you nailed it. Definitely if you're looking for a campsite or something, you better make a reservation.
Yeah.
Maybe just the day pass. You still should make a reservation, but there's probably a whole lot more flexibility.
Yeah, there is. And then to add to that, if you want to stay at the Indian Lodge, you need a reserve, and we were closed for several years, and so there's a lot of pent up interest, and so we're staying pretty booked there. You can reserve 5 months out, just like any campsite. And we have a total of 39 rooms up there, but some of them are still being worked on, being renovated. So there's probably about 30 rooms total that are available. And so, yeah, you're gonna have to get on that early to book a room there.
And there's no leasing out tents in your backyard, right? So
That's true.
they better that's so I think what is one of the most important things is how can our listeners get connected to the state park to understand all the wonderful programs that you have, like calendar look ahead, so they can plan these trips, and also booking at the lodge or the restaurant. What would you say is the best way to get connected to the park?
Yeah, great question. So to book a campsite or a room at the lodge ahead of time, which is always recommended. You have to do that online or through the call center in Austin. And if you're familiar with call centers, you know that you can often wait. So if you're handy at the computer, you can go online and you can go to reserveamerica.com, or go to any state park website, and there'll be a button for reservations, and so you'll have to make an account, and then you can go ahead and make your reservations. We can do day of reservations on the phone here, but I would not recommend you wait till the day of to make your reservation. So that's how you do that. But you can always call us, and if you have a question, like if it's just not making sense, um, call the Davis Mountains front office or the Indian Lodge front office, and you'll get a live person who can give you some assistance. But as far as knowing kind of what's going on, I would recommend going to our website. So every state park has its own website. We have ours. And Indian Lodge has one as well. And you can go to the event tab and look and see what our programs are. And so that's one of my jobs, is to to update that, and we try to keep stuff up there, a couple of months out in the future. And then also, if you do social media, you can see what we're up to on our Instagram or Facebook page. I've started doing a video update on Fridays, like every other Friday. And so I go through the kind of the hot button stuff. You'll also see little promos on our different programs. I do a week at a glance calendar up there. Yeah, if you do those things, you're gonna know what's going on here for sure.
Yeah, and I absolutely was going to tell you I love the Friday updates.
Oh,
I
cool.
started following them and watching them, and I think it's well worth the effort to do that. So yeah, you're rocking that. I really enjoy them.
Thank you. I have fun with that. Yeah. I'm just trying to give people a little hands-on experience, bird's eye view, until they can come out here in person.
Absolutely. All right, last question. What is your go? Well, actually, I want to ask you a bonus question, but the technically last question: what is your go-to advice for first-time visitors to this kind of environment? Because like where I'm from, I'm in around Houston, the Woodlands area. We don't have desert and these sort of things. So like, what is that advice that you would give?
Um, let's see. Well, definitely check the weather before you come, so you're not ill prepared. I see so many people come here that are just blown away, that are just taken aback by the scenery, the openness of the sky, the dark skies, the clarity of the sky, the mountains, and that's just so fun. I mean, that helps me like remember what it was like when I first came here.
Yeah.
When you see that, be prepared for kind of wonky um, Wi-Fi and internet connection. Be okay with leaving some of the comforts of the big city. Because we have one small grocery store. We have a couple of restaurants, but things sometimes are not open when you think they're going to be open. And the restaurant that you had wanted to go to, everybody in town is also wanting to go there. So that kind of stuff can happen. What else?
I would say if you're out there, as beautiful as it is, and you're on your phone, turn around and go home.
Exactly. That's kind of what I want to tell people, but it's kind of rude. But
Yeah, we can't do that.
you know, we 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 have challenges here. We have a shortage of staff, um, and a lot of that is due to lack of housing. There's just not a lot of affordable housing out here. A lot of people that work here commute in from Alpine, and that's about a 35 minute commute. And so, and people might wonder, well, why? It's so beautiful here. It. I guess I have a couple of theories. It's a relatively shallow pool of local employees, and then if you're wanting to recruit people from far away, it's a big move for people, and again they have to find housing, so it's very remote. So be patient with us if the restroom is not immaculate. It let someone know, and we'll get to it as soon as we can. Um, yeah, there's challenges. We currently have 5 openings at the Black Bear Restaurant. We've got a maintenance position open. We've got a customer service, kind of a front desk position we're looking for, and we're also looking for the superintendent of the Indian Lodge. So there's a lot of job opportunities out here. If anybody is curious, and just let me give the little plug here. If you want to learn more, you can You can Google TPWD jobs. So that's TPWD, Texas Parks and Wildlife Department. If you Google that, you will go straight to the job page. And from there, you can search by location. So you could put in Fort Davis, and you would see all of those positions, and then you can read about them and see what the requirements are. And let me just say, if you're going to apply, you're going to be asked to speak to your knowledge, your skills, your experience. And if you want to rate higher and get a better chance at an interview, you want to say something to all of those points, even if you think it's a minor thing. The more that you can speak to those things, the higher your chances are of getting an interview. So there's definite strategy involved.
All right, last question. This is your time to sell the park. We've talked a whole lot about all the highlights and the wonderful things. Give me that message. Give our listeners a message on why they need to come to the park.
Well, they need to come here because they're going to be blown away. It's beautiful. I mean, here's the deal. Most people come here on I-10. Okay, if you're coming from either the west or the east, you're going through flat, barren, dry land, and you're thinking, "What the heck? Who would want to live out here?" And then you get to Balmorhea, and you
Yeah.
turn south, and even before Balmorhea, you start seeing the silhouette of the mountains on the horizon. You turn off at Balmorhea, and you start heading south, and you start rising. Okay, and if your car has a thermometer inside, you're going to see that temperature going down bit by bit. You're going to start seeing some grass. You're going to start kind of weaving through the foothills, and you're just going to be blown away, especially if you've never been here before. And you're going to get here and you're going to think, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm still in Texas." And then you're gonna see, right now you're gonna see so much green. You would think I mentioned this earlier on a video. You're gonna think you're in Ireland, but with cactus. And you're gonna pitch your tent or whatever, and then it's gonna get nighttime. You're gonna go outside, and you're gonna see stars that you've never ever seen before if it's a clear sky,
Yeah.
and it's gonna be cool. And yeah, it's just a beautiful place that's kind of on the edge of the frontier, on the edge of civilization. It's just remote enough that you really feel like you're at the end of the world, and you're gonna have time and space to clear your mind and get back to what's really important in life. That's my pitch.
You nailed it. Sold. I'm going to be there on my next backpacking trip.
Yeah, I can't believe you haven't been here yet, Jason.
Well, I hit the preserve, and and to the listeners, make a comment on the episode. I will send you pictures of how spectacular this area is. And absolutely, that's exactly what I said. And, I already kind of had a knowledge that Texas was pretty spectacular with the quads and some of the other stuff that I've seen. But I literally stopped and looked at Henning and said, I have never seen a prettier area in my life. There is no way this is a desert. This is unbelievable. So you sold me, and I'll definitely let you know when I'll be out there.
Very cool. Very, very cool.
So Charlie, I don't have the words, and I don't even when I find the words, I don't think does it justice of how thankful I am for you taking the time to come on the podcast.
Well, you're certainly welcome.
You're the first state park, and I don't know what you did. You I don't know what, but as soon as you said yes, and mind you, this has been probably about a 6 month, just people kind of committed, and then people left, and so it's been a struggle for me. But as soon as you said yes, the floodgates of state parks are just, I have like 13 or 14 right now that I'm scheduling a time with, and and I'm gonna credit it to you and you saying yes and being the first one. And again, I can't thank you enough for taking the time out the podcast, and I will,
I'll take that
I
credit.
absolutely. So I'm gonna give you back the rest of your day. Again, thanks, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you, Jason. I look forward to hearing this and promoting this later on.
Yes, sir. Have a good one.
You too, Jason.
And that wraps up another exciting episode of the Trailblazing Texas podcast. We hope you enjoyed the episode today, and stay tuned for our next episode where we will pick back up where we left off and guarantee to uncover many more hiking gems and share many more tips to enhance your experience on the trail. Until then, happy trails and happy hiking.